I'm here with Dan Lowe, part of our campfire series. And today we're going to talk about something that Dan's written about and talked about extensively before, but it's been many years, and you've come across more information. And
I have?
Yeah, as far as I know. So today I want to talk about the Cottonwood Marble Tablets. Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
So tell us a story about the Cottonwood Marble Tablets and your involvement in it.
Well, it was about 1916. Group of miners was up Cottonwood Canyon.
Now that's down
big or little
one
Cottonwood Canyon.
Okay.
I'm not sure which. I have my ideas where it was, but anyway, they were working a copper mine, and they were punching a new hole, a new side drift or something, and they broke into an ancient cavern. And the next 4 following days, they had articles describing the contents, everything that took place, and then it just up and disappeared. No more talk about it, no cry of a hoax, nothing. The interesting thing about it is how I learned about it. I had just got done writing the chapter in the book Nephi North concerning fountains,
waters,
and yeah, and the tops of the mountains opening up and the underground rivers flowing down and so forth. I mean, I literally just got done with it. I get a phone call from one of my friends, and he says, "Hey, I found some articles I think you're going to like." And he had no idea I was writing about the very thing he was going to send me. And he sent me those newspaper articles on the Cottonwood Marble Tablets. I read through that, and holy crap, this is amazing. Well, whoever scanned the articles didn't do a great job at it, but it was good enough you could read the story. But I wanted to see the images of the artifacts much better than what their scans gave. So I and a friend of mine, we went up to the university in Salt Lake, I think it was, and we tracked down the original newspapers, and sure enough, the photos were much better. And incidentally, I'll be putting an article, in fact, it'll probably be on Tuscoro.com before this video even comes out. But I don't know how many of the people out there know that how involved in studying the Native American petroglyphs I have been for about 35 years now. And I don't want to give that impression that I can walk up to any Native American petroglyph and read it, because that's just not how it works. There are some that you can walk up to and you know exactly what they're telling you. It is quite literally a lost language. There's very little bit of it left that you can sink your teeth into.
Didn't you say at one time that you felt like the petroglyphs, kind of part of it stemmed out of the sign language?
Well, I know it did. When I first found my first petroglyph, which 35 years or so ago, I was so fascinated by it. And I had been out there playing in the desert since I was a kid, and never come across anything like that. And I can't remember exactly what year it was, but I was out there with some friends one day, and we just happened to pull up into the right little canyon or draw and spotted some petroglyphs, and so we went over and looked at them and decided to start searching and see if we couldn't find some more. And just up the hill from that was one of the first panels I ever found. Here we are 35 years later, and I still don't fully understand that panel. I do know that it's talking about a mudslide that came down out of that canyon and that it injured people. I see no evidence of death, but it does show destruction and injury. And anyway, that's how it started. But after finding that, I went up to the universities, and actually I started with one of the local libraries up above Midville. I don't know what they call that area. But anyway, I spent a couple weeks there, and just going through book after book, you know, checking in book authors who are archaeologists and paleontologists and anybody that I thought should know
something about it.
Yeah, and what I found out is all these people that should know don't know.
Right.
I have found numerous articles that were written back 1600s, 1700s, where the first explorers on this continent, once they were able to communicate with the Indians, they asked them, when did your people make these writings? And they said, oh, we don't make them. I said, well, who did? They said, oh, some white Indian that used to live here. We ran him out of here. And that's always the case. Never found any evidence anywhere where any Indian tribe said that
they knew
took
who
claim
made
to them. Yeah.
Or could fully understand them.
Well, now the interesting thing is one of the things that the earliest explorers noticed is that all the tribes, no matter where they were from, could understand each other through hand sign language.
Right.
But the Native American petroglyphs, they had all sorts of different ideas of what it was all about. They called it hunting magic. They called it, you know, it was taboo. They were supposed to stay away from it. But the majority of those who spoke out a little bit about it always blamed it on a people that they ran out of here a long time ago.
It was before.
One of them said, you know, where'd they go? And they said, well, they go south. And my ancestors run into probably the same people, the Lenape, when they migrated from here in about 700 AD. They went back east in search of better lands. They had some dispute here that they just didn't want any part of, had something to do with twins. Mm-hmm. Probably two people contending for, you know, leader of the people or whatever.
Right.
It's been a while since I've read the story, but they ran into a tribe of large Indians. They called them pale skin, large, and they lived across the river Mississippi, mm-hmm. which we're presuming is the Mississippi River. And they asked for permission to cross the river to come into their lands to settle, and they told them no. And they said, well, could we pass through your lands and keep going and, you know, to search for better lands to live? And they said yes. So the next day, they start crossing the river by the thousands, and it freaks the other people out, and they attack them. And so the Lenape always viewed them as a deceptive people that can't be trusted. They ended up joining with a warring tribe, further north, and they vowed to wipe these people out, and they eventually did. They ran them out of there. Now, these are the people that the academics would refer to as the Hopewell culture, the mound builders.
Right.
So,
well,
anyways, so where was we going with all that?
We were talking about the Cottonwood Marble Tablets. Tell people what was on the tablets. What was showing?
There's actually different, I don't want to use the word style because I've been very adamant that there is no style. Different tribal rules or application of writing, okay? For example, you compare the Ojibwa and the Sioux Indian hieroglyphs to the standard Native American petroglyph you see around here. One looks like an absolute mess when you find it, and the other one is more like hieroglyphs.
Right.
Well, the hieroglyphs on the Cottonwood Marble Tablet, they almost look childish, okay? But that's the way some of them were.
Right.
And they're more of a hieroglyph form. Now, there are a lot of the symbols and so forth that I can see what it's referring to, and but anyway, when I first saw those images, it was fascinating. And there was a guy, remember Auerbach's furniture store, or whatever
I know who
it
you're
was?
talking. Yeah.
Well, I think this guy was the founder of that store. When this happened, he gave his opinion on what he thought these tablets were about, and that's where this legend came from about the Salt Princess. And I think everybody thinks that that's the actual Indian interpretation, was this no Shishu or something like that, the Salt Princess. And it was made up by this Auerbach guy. Well, when I look at it, I see the creation of Lake Bonneville. I see the tops of the mountains opening, water coming down. I see the symbolism that tells you who the people were, or literally the name of their city at the base of each of those mountains. It's actually pretty fascinating. Talks about a storm that came in, lasted for 3 days. I'd have to look at the panel again.
I remember seeing some photos, and it seems like there were some volcanoes on there.
Well, everybody looked at that and said, "Oh, those are volcanoes." No, they're not volcanoes. If they were volcanoes, you'd see the symbolism for fire.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's not there. It is the symbolism for water. And if you look in the valleys between the mountains, you have waters, okay? Yes, they do look like volcanoes, okay? But it's representation, the symbolism's there for open and you have water running, okay? If it was fire, it'd be a little bit different and you'd be able to tell. The first day they went on and on about the artifacts, and it seemed that they found more than what they talked about. There was a copper tablet also, and it has some strange looking creatures on it. I would bet that that's why it disappeared. When you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. The second day was a little more hype on it, and some of the artifacts again, they showed the bowls, some ceramics that they found, and the third day I don't remember, and fourth day, fifth day, nothing. Never another word about it.
Where did they end up?
It said, I can't remember for sure, but I think it said that one of the universities came out. I don't know. All I know is that every effort we have attempted to try to figure out where they went has come to an end. I think they're in the basement of one of these universities. I'd love to find them.
Yeah. Well, they know they're authentic. There's no question they're authentic. They
Well,
couldn't be a hoax, the way it happened.
Well, anybody could come up with a scenario, okay?
Yeah.
But where do you draw the line? I mean, I've seen so many things that you could very easily say was a hoax, but...
Well, you break into a cavern, and the same day you break into the cavern, these things come out. How long would it take to make those if they were a hoax?
Well, that's presuming that they broke into the cavern and found them.
Right.
Okay. Believe me, the people will come up with the excuses as to why it was probably a hoax. But to me, that's what people come up with who are lazy.
Or don't like the scenario that seems to be presented.
Yeah, or that we had a civilization here at one time that could actually write.
Yeah. Yep.
Watch for the article. I haven't published it since, I think it was 2018, but I remember it was a very popular article, and I may go through it, a little bit, and maybe add some to it, take some away, I don't know.
Now, you're going to be speaking at the Moon Lake Gathering in August, and would that be something you might talk a little bit about in that? I mean,
I don't know. I really don't know. I have not even thought about, well, maybe a little bit, thought about what I'm going to do.
well, I'm trying to give the people a little bit of reason to come see it.
I like to do question answer. I like to interact with people.
Yeah.
I like to talk to people.
It's just hard. It's just hard at a gathering like that to be able to do that type of.
It is, and
scenario.
that's why I want to use somebody up on stage. You know, you wouldn't have to know anybody, and you know, but give the people an opportunity to ask questions. What do you want to hear? I mean, there's so much to tell. It's just difficult to put your finger on one thing.
This Cottonwood
It's not that I don't have anything to talk about, it's I can't decide what.
Well, this Cottonwood tablet thing kind of ties into what we were talking about the other day about what happened to the Aztec and some of those civilizations that talk about where they came from, and some of the land of whiteness, the heron, the Lake Kapala.
The theory on the Colorado Plateau uplift.
And that's what we were talking about, is when the Colorado Plateau uplift occurred, when we look at all the historical things and what happened, it seems to me that that was the time period when there were some active volcanoes, there were some Indian legends about great earthquakes and lakes draining.
Yes, even in the Aztec migration stories.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, I'm not only certain, I'm absolutely certain that that's the reason why they left this area.
It's interesting that all the maps that you see of Lake Kapala that have been drawn happen to look just like this ancient lake called Lake Uinta, or that supposedly...
Well, the academics have never really done a very good rendition of any of the lakes that were over on this side of the state. Of course, you know,
Bonneville.
Lake Bonneville is easy. They got a shoreline all the way around.
Yeah,
it.
That's been extensively studied.
And taking into consideration the earthquakes that occurred here 2,000 years ago.
And the mountains coming up.
And valleys, valleys became mountains, mountains became valleys. Yet we have this perfect shoreline all the way around Lake Bonneville. How is that possible if it's 14,000 years old?
Had to have happened after.
Exactly.
Yep.
When the Spanish got here in the 1500s, they saw what little was left of Lake Bonneville when the two lakes were still joined together.
Right.
It was in the process of depleting.
We also have early explorers and people, the Spanish, maybe the Jesuits before Even the Lewis and Clark expedition that had ancient maps or maps that seemed to be guiding them, but they were totally confused by them because the whole map seems like they had changed.
Well, I can't remember exactly who it was. It could have been Lewis and Clark. A friend of mine sent me some information, which I'm gonna have to dig it up, and because that may be one of the topics that I go into at the gathering. But these people were looking for this great river to the west. My question is, how the hell did they know there was ever a river that went to the west from here? One of the individuals mentioned that there is a place where a large source of water comes to the surface and divides and basically feeds the entire west. He says all these rivers come from this source. And he says if we can find that, he says you can walk around it in a day where all this water comes from.
Yeah.
How the hell did he know that?
Yeah.
And you know, I'm sorry, but the viewers are probably wondering what the hell I'm talking about, but that's an in-depth discussion, and I'm just not ready for it yet.
Yeah. Well, the point I was making is we do have old maps that seem to show things that correspond to science, except for these maps obviously were not made 10 million years ago.
Right. You look at
even 10,000 years ago. They had to have been made more recently because they show features that...
Right, we have several 16th century, 17th century maps. Have a beautiful rendition of Lake Kapala.
Yep.
Okay. Now, granted, it's not exact. Well, I couldn't find a good rendition of the ancient lakes that were around here, so you know me, I'm going to go create my own.
Look at the topography, the elevation.
Well, what I did is I used All Topo mapping program, and used their shading program, and we came out and did a little bit of field study out here.
Looked at all the shorelines and fossils. And
right. We
the wave rocks.
There's a shoreline at about 6,200 feet.
Right.
And we know there was a lower shoreline also. I think it was 5,800. And so based on those elevations and understanding that this entire basin, in fact, the majority of Utah has twisted and tipped. And we know that.
Mountains came up.
Well, this was a little different deal. This is the Colorado Plateau uplift.
Right.
30,000 years ago, mind you. So knowing that that shoreline has been tampered with, I still knew that it was going to give me a pretty good image. So what I did is I went out and field checked, and we decided to go with the 6,000 or the 6,200 foot level. And I pulled out the 30-minute maps, joined them together, covered the entire basin. I think it took 4 maps, 4 30-minute maps, and used the shading program on All Topo to show me where the boundaries of this lake was.
Right.
And that's how I came up with that image that you see that's overlaid onto Google Earth. And you saw how strikingly similar it is to the renditions on the 1600, 1700s maps.
Yep.
How is that possible?
They also, the Aztec refer in their documents to the place they came from as Turtle Island, or the place of the turtles. How many turtle fossils do we have here in the basin?
Well, I'll tell you, I've read a lot of legends on Turtle Island, okay? And, you know, depending on who's reading it, there's dozens of scenarios you can come up with as to what they were talking about.
Right.
But I'm here to tell you, Turtle Island was a place that, it wasn't called Turtle Island because it looked like a turtle. Although this particular island
kind of looked
did
like one.
somewhat kind of look like an elongated turtle, but that's not how it got its name. Some people think Turtle Island is the whole of America. Not so.
Right.
Turtle Island was called Turtle Island because it was the place where the sea turtles went to breed and lay their eggs.
Or
Now,
aquatic turtles.
do you know any place here in the basin that has an overabundance of tortoise shells, big sea turtles?
Yeah, there's turtle fossils
We
everywhere.
personally know of one that's 10 foot in diameter.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of, you can go down to the Dinosaur Museum in Bernal and
Yeah.
Look at all the fossils, the turtle fossils, the aquatic animal fossils that were there.
That was Turtle Island.
Crocodiles, big aquatic creatures that no longer exist. Or
It's not a theory, okay? It's a fact that the Uinta Mountains was completely surrounded by an ocean,
Yep.
okay?
Inland
It's
sea.
not a theory.
Yeah.
After that sea dispersed, it's not a theory that we had a lake here that looked like Lake Kapala on those 15th or 16th, 17th century maps.
Right.
It's not a theory. It's a fact.
Yep. They couldn't have written about it.
The difference is the time frames. We got academia over here who always adds 3 or 4 zeros to any number they come up with.
Right.
I don't know why, but they do.
I love it when they say, yeah, that took place during the Triassic and give or take 100 million, 150 million years. And if I was an accountant, oh, give or take 150 million, do you think where I'd be? You know, I mean, what other group of people could get away with throwing casually around 150 million of anything?
I wish I could remember that guy's name that was on TV when I was in my younger years, and he'd get up there and he'd say, billions and billions and billions of years ago. And us kids would sit there and go,
When are you going to be posting your update on this article about the Cottonwood Marble Tablet?
Well, let's see, the first time it was published was in 2013. I published it on toscore.com in 2014, and I think I did again in 2018. But I got so many hits on it, I think I'm going to go and put it up again.
Update some information, and you probably got a bunch more photos. And
well, I like to go back and read through them and ask myself, did that make sense?
Yeah. So what about, let's talk a little bit about the Moon Lake thing before we close up here. So you're going to be speaking there, and any idea what you're going to be speaking about other than...
Didn't we talk about that when we got started?
Yeah, I was trying to pin you down more on it. I'm trying to build some hype here.
I don't know, I'm kind of... If I have to speak on a particular topic, I mean, I like to take things to that point where it's almost unbelievable. I like last year,
Yeah.
you know, I like to take it to the point where I'm no longer comfortable talking about it because I know the people won't accept it.
Yeah.
But I like to leave them thinking.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I might focus on the Colorado Plateau uplift.
I think that'd be great.
Because it's the next step. It's the next step in going backwards into understanding our past, because that is the key to understand the future.
And a lot of the civilizations and what happened. Because, you know, I've been doing a lot of research on the Anasazi and the Aztec, how they tie together, and I found come to some startling conclusions, and those conclusions are based in hundreds and hundreds of archaeological finds that are just now being admitted or uncovered that they haven't really presented before. That
Okay, so what did you find? Did you find similarities?
Well, I was trying to find what happened to the Aztec, what happened to the Anasazi, were their disappearances tied together somehow, were the dates crossed, and I found some startling things in both natural causes for them to be moving as well as civilization downfall. If we look at Rome and some of the other ancient civilizations, we see and realize that their downfall came as a result of too much ease, classes, dark magic, human sacrifice.
Basically all the iniquities that every society falls into.
That causes society to start crumble and fall apart.
Okay, so let me ask you something. Based on all of that, you'll notice as you read through all the old books, the old documents, we really don't know how long ago the Anasazi lived. What does the academic say as far as the Anasazi goes? What do you think and why?
The academics say that Chaco Canyon, that the Aztecs and the Anasazi are tied together at Chaco Canyon. That it was a trading hub, a civilization, a religious center. They have Aztec parrot feathers, they have Aztec jewelry, they have Aztec clothing, they have Aztec symbolism in the structures, and so at Chaco Canyon, the time frames and the civilizations, we have both Aztec styles and trade items tied in with the Anasazi there.
Well, I should hope so.
And so that is one of the places that the Aztec either stopped and people were left there, or they came back from Mexico and established a trade hub and a religious center there. But that is about the time when the Anasazi disappeared, so we know that whatever, and then later Chaco disappeared, so whatever happened is all tied together there.
Well, from my perspective, there's a lot of truth in that. But, and I'll save this for some other time, but one of the keys is understanding who those two peoples were, where they come from.
Yeah.
The Aztec, although it's fascinating as to their history and where they came from, I mean literally from the time they landed on this continent. Most people think they just grew up out of the ground. Been here ever since, okay? Trust me, they migrated here also. The Anasazi is an ancient enemy, okay? Navajo, the Apache, the Hopi, I mean...
But what we have to understand is that the word Anasazi, Aztec...
It means ancient enemy.
Well, I know, but Paiute, Ute, were all names given to these tribes by academia, because the Aztec and the Paiute and the Ute and the Gashute and the Wallapai and the Havasupai, they all called themselves the people. They didn't call themselves, you know, Paiute and Ute and Gashute and Aztec and Anasazi, and even the Aztec, they referred to themselves as the people. And it was academia that divided the tribes and put them in culture groups and all that.
Yeah, and I kind of get why they did it. You know, I run into the same problem with petroglyphs, you know.
Right.
It's as if they want you to understand there was all these different peoples because we have different styles. You have Fremont style. Right. You have Vernal style. Yep. There's no such thing as style in Native American petroglyphs. There is, however, subject matter differences.
Well, look at the state of Utah. It's a kind of a diverse state. Some people may not see it that way, but you've lived in a few different places in the state, and the culture and the houses and the people and how they talk in southern Utah and central Utah and northern Utah is all totally different.
There's differences.
Yeah.
Not anything
not
I would
huge,
call blatant.
Not huge, but You go,
Not
if I go up to
you know,
Salt
up
Lake,
here we change the oil in our cars, and down in Texas they change their all.
if I go to Salt Lake and I talk to a person, they go, I know you're from southern Utah. And how did you know that? Because of your drawl.
Yeah.
They know. And if they're from northern Utah and I talk to them, 9 times out of 10, if they were born and raised there, I know they were from northern Utah. You know.
See, and I'm not attentive enough to
pick that
hear
up
those
all the time.
differences. Yeah, yeah. It's just, it would take, you know, somebody would have to come in and say, hey, you want to go have some, want to go have a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
If they said, you want some coffee? I'd say, you're from Jersey.
Or Canada. No, but
no, if they're from Canada, it's
But, yeah, but what I'm saying is,
you know what I mean?
Each of these little areas being, even though they're not isolated, we have communication and travel much greater than any time in our history. We still have slight cultural differences that
known history.
Yeah, the people that are in tune can see, and so if you isolated people by space and transportation and you know, the ancient times where everything was less and slower paced, you're going to have a lot bigger differences to different groups of people that are isolated from each other. They're going to develop their own styles and their own, which the academia will say, well, that's the Fremont and the Anasazi. No, I said in one class, I said, wait, wasn't that the country people and the city people? And the professor was like, I don't want to hear that again. You know what I mean? It was like, well, they lived in the same area. These guys lived in a big group. This group was in little isolated, spread out area.
I'll give you a little tidbit, okay? Just to give you an example. In most of the places where you're going to find vernal style, Fremont style, barrier style, forgot about that one. Yeah. I don't know where it come from, but okay. You have petroglyphs and you have pictographs.
Yep.
Okay, when you have petroglyphs, it's talking about something physical.
Typically, it seems like.
For example, a line, it's a trail, it's go, it's a path. Okay, it's a physical thing, all right? When you see the paintings, depending on the colors, but the most common is red.
Yeah.
Okay, it's of a spiritual nature.
Right, or supernatural, whatever, however.
Something that is not of this world.
Right.
Okay? That's red. Just remember, red is dead.
And,
okay?
And also in those
yellow, you have sickness. Blue or purples, you have royalty.
Yeah.
It's literally talking about
you even have
royal descent.
You even have stuff that seems to be good and evil. You have the darker colors,
you have black
and
gray.
white.
White is purity.
White. Yeah.
And that's something that you're never going to read in an academic book.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you, I usually say, I could be wrong. I don't believe I'm wrong in this.
I had an old timer that used to be a pot hunter, or back in the day, many years ago. He used to, go look for Anasazi, Fremont stuff, things that's illegal today. And he told me that if you ever find a black symbol, it represents a medicine man that does black magic.
Probably, and I know where some of those are.
Yeah.
In fact.
And you might have said it earlier when you said that may be an advertising thing. Maybe you wanted to go get your fortunes forecast lucky charms. You went over to the black petroglyph, turned left, and went up to the medicine man.